Niagara were the bold and fearless wire walkers. They stretched their cables across the gorge from the American to the Canadian side and performed breathtaking stunts. The most famous of these wire walkers was a French man whose stage name was Blondin. His most thrilling feat was to carry his manager, Harry Calcord, across the swaying cable on his back. In the Daredevil section of our museum, you'll see other adventures of Blondin. Be sure to read Calcord's description of their harrowing journey across the gorge. The excitement never ends at Niagara. Can you imagine trying to swim the rapids below the falls? The lower rapids are said to be the fastest moving water in the world. Take a look at one of Captain Matthew Webb's last photographs. Captain Webb swam across the English Channel and was known as one of the strongest swimmers in the world. Regarding Niagara, he said, "I will let the current carry me downstream using my swimming strength to make sure I stay in the middle away from the rocks. When the water gets very bad, I will go under the surface until I am compelled to surface for lack of breath." Captain Webb's body was sucked under and emerged 4 days later at the whirlpool. Okay, so maybe it's too dangerous to swim in the lower rapids, but it just might be possible to safely navigate through in a barrel. In the 1880s, the barrel riders took front stage at the falls as they climbed in their barrels for a wild ride through the lower rapids. There were many who tried, but not all of them made it. Red Hill Sr. was best known of these barrel riders. Red was a veteran of the river and had successfully weathered the journey 4 times. He knew its waves. During his life, he was credited for rescuing 26 people and pulling out 177 from their watery grave. The stunters would not be satisfied with a mere ride through the rapids. The next wave of daredevils would attempt the ultimate feat, a ride over Niagara's mighty Horseshoe Falls. Can you believe it? The falls drops 170 feet with a pounding force equal to nearly 9,000 tons of water per second. What kind of person would take on such a stunt? The first challenge was attempted by a most unexpected individual. In 1901, Ann Taylor, a schoolteacher, came forth to hopefully claim fortune and fame by becoming the first to successfully go over the falls in a barrel. Her accomplishment still stands today as one of the most daring stunts at the falls. The scope of her feat becomes even more astonishing when you compare her little wooden barrel to the more high-tech metal barrels of more recent stunters. Annie's most dramatic moment in history has been captured in a life-size display found here at the museum. You can feel the emotion and imagine the terror and relief as she emerges from her barrel. Bobby Leach on July 25, 1911, would be the second to successfully go over the falls in a steel barrel. A replica of the barrel can be seen in the Daredevil section of the museum. Unfortunately, years later, while Bobby was on tour in New Zealand, he slipped on an orange peel, broke his leg, and eventually died when gangrene set in. Certainly a bizarre ending for someone who spent his life defying death. Charles Stevens in 1920 would be the first of these stunters to die. Like Annie Taylor, he attempted to go over in a wooden barrel. The barrel smashed on impact, tearing his body apart. Stevens' mangled body was identified later by the remains of his tattooed arm that was caught in the harness of the barrel. The death of Stevens didn't discourage the Daredevils. On July 4th, 1928, Jean Lussier would successfully go over the falls in a rubber ball. You can see a replica of the ball and, most importantly, hear in his own words the actual description of his trip over the falls as you continue your tour of the museum. On July 30th, 1930, the death-defying stunts would continue as George L. Stathakis, a Greek chef from nearby Buffalo, would plunge over the falls in a barrel made of wood and steel and equipped with a supply of oxygen. The force of the water trapped him under the falls for 22 hours, where he eventually died from suffocation. On August 5th, 1951, William Red Hill Jr., son of famed Red Sr., went over in a barrel made out of fishnet and truck inner tubes. The netting came apart, and his body was found the next day by his family. The stunters still continue to risk their lives despite the obvious dangers. For more of their adventures, we invite you to examine the details and memorabilia of this growing list of daredevils. More of their adventures can be seen inside the Daredevil Museum.